Hey guys, Tammy here, and in this video, I'm going to talk about 3 ways to protect your kids from trauma. Now, I was recently introduced to a book by a friend of mine who is a therapist, and it is called Trauma Proofing Your Kids. I think trauma proofing your children, trauma proofing your kids, one of the two. It's a book written by somebody named Peter Levine and Maggie Klein. Those are the two authors of the book. And it's very interesting book. It delves into a lot of the different aspects of trauma, and obviously for purposes of this video, I'm not going to try to cover all the different angles and information that they cover in the book. But I did want to kind of just give you a little highlight of one of the helpful pieces that I think may be good for use, particularly in a custody situation. One of the things they talk about in the book is that trauma is a fact of life. No matter what we go through, we are going to experience some kind of trauma just by being a human being. And one of the interesting things they said is, we tend to think of trauma in terms of really severe things like, molestation as a child or different things like that. But trauma can really come just from everyday things like, your parents getting a divorce or you being bullied at school or all the little typical mundane things that happen in our day-to-day lives can create trauma. And, it's different for everybody because we're all individuals with different sensitivities and different, feelings about things. And so it's hard to know what creates trauma for one person, whether or not that same thing is going to create trauma for the next person. I want to dive in and give you kind of a little helpful process that you can use with your kids to help them maybe deal with some of their feelings and stress and anxiety and trauma that they may be experiencing, particularly as it relates to the child custody aspect of your situation. When we notice that our children are struggling emotionally or their behavior, they act out, different things like that can show you that they're under emotional stress, right? And, I think sometimes we don't always realize in the beginning of like a divorce or separated situation that maybe a lot of the bad behavior is coming from the stress or the anger or whatever it is, the negative emotions that they have around the breakup. But that does happen a lot of the time. And of course, therapy is always a great option and something that I recommend practically everyone do for their kids. But in that moment when your child is struggling, what can we really do to help build resiliency in them and help them learn how to cope with trauma themselves appropriately, right? And not be out searching for some quick fix or whatever. And I think that especially in this day and age, we see a lot of kids do that through, video games or unhealthy foods or whatever social media, interacting, messaging with friends, all these different distractions that we have that are tools that they're now using that of course we didn't have as kids that they're using to help distract them so that they don't have to actually deal with negative feelings or the trauma that they may be experiencing from them. One of the things that they say in the book that you always want to do is check your own feelings first, right? Check in with your own body. Make sure that you're kind of in a calm, grounded state before you even go in to have a conversation with them. Because if they're upset or they're angry or they're misbehaving or they're doing all these things and you're angry or you're in your own negative state, you're not going to be able to help them learn how to self-soothe, right? You've got to actually be able to do that for yourself first, okay? So we're going to put our own mask on first. We're going to check in with our own body. We're going to see how we're feeling. If we're grounded, maybe we need to take a little bit of time to relax or go for a walk or meditate or do whatever it is that gives you that little bit of soothing and grounding before you approach your child. And then what you want to do is that same kind of process with them. You want to go in with them and say, you seem really upset. How are you feeling? A lot of times with kids, it manifests in the form of a tummy ache or a headache, or you may know for your child that it's a specific thing that they complain about or whatever. I had one of my stepsons who would always say his chest feels funny, and it was because he was having anxiety, and I think his heart rate was kind of increased, and he would say his chest feels funny. You just want to check in with them and have them check in with their own body so that they can start to identify. They don't recognize, a kid doesn't recognize that their tummy is from the stress. And you don't necessarily have to tell them that, but I think just by pointing out, just by asking them, "Hey, how are you feeling? Are you having a tummy ache? Are you having a headache? Are you having, where do you feel the anger in your body, or where do you feel the sadness in your body, or whatever?" And usually, if you ask a child that question, they can tell you where they feel it. They're much more in tune most of the time with their bodies than we are. So that's step number one. Step number two for the child is to then help them be able to relax. Maybe take them through a meditation or go on a walk with them and let them have some time to have that quiet and get that little bit of exercise in. A lot of times, if you can teach your child to meditate, and you can teach them very young, actually, to even just do a short meditation, but be able to walk them through like relaxing their body, relaxing their whatever they're wherever they're feeling it, their head or their tummy or whatever it is, and kind of helping them process that and have kind of that calm, quiet little time to, again, it's a self-soothing mechanism, right? That we're trying to help them learn how to invoke. And when you teach them these kinds of techniques, the great thing is that when they learn that process, it's a process they can utilize even at the other parent's home. So when they start to feel upset or when they start to whatever, if they have found the things that you're teaching them to be helpful, they're going to then rely on those tools even when they're not with you to help them learn how to soothe their nervous system. The third thing that you want to do once they are calm and are feeling a little more grounded is to ask them to share what's going on. You seemed really upset earlier. So in the first instance, we're not going to try to talk to them about it. We're just going to recognize and kind of validate that, hey, you like you're feeling upset. You look like, it seems like you're having a hard time today, whatever. And then in the third step, when you ask them to share and they say, well, maybe it's a kid at school, maybe somebody said something mean. Wow, I know that's really upsetting when that happens. How did you handle it? Did you like the way that you handled it? Did it make you feel better? Did it make you more upset? Do you wish you had handled it differently? What are some ways? What are some things we could do when that happens and how to handle it? And teach them how to think through that process so that when they do get to that point and you're not with them, they have the ability to utilize those tools to help them. Okay. First thing that you want to do is kind of check in with your own self, make sure you're physically grounded, then help them check in with themselves and make sure that they're physically grounded. And then secondly, just help them relax and calm down and invoke some sort of soothing mechanism. And third, you want to then have a discussion with them and invite them to share so that you can validate their feelings and help them kind of work through maybe how they would handle it in the future if they're not happy with how they handled it then. And that'll help build their resilience. It'll help build their confidence the next time they come up against this type of dilemma. They'll know exactly what to do to be able to solve the problem. I hope that's helpful. If you'd like to learn more techniques on how you can help your kids through these kinds of situations, then you can go to divorceuniversityonline.com/VIP-coaching. There is information on that page about my group coaching programs and also the option to book a call with me if you're interested in premium one-on-one coaching services and you feel like your case is complex enough that you need that level of support. Thanks for joining me. I'll see you guys next time.